Kaori's journey began on an overcast afternoon, when a persistent whisper from the wind beckoned her to a remote valley enveloped in eerie mist. As she traversed the winding, cracked pathway leading toward the forsaken lakeside, the world around her seemed to slip into an uncanny silence. The oppressive fog wrapped its damp, chilly tendrils around her, making her heart beat faster with each step. The darkness that enveloped the ancient landscape hinted at unspeakable secrets hidden beneath the veneer of nature's melancholic beauty, igniting a spark of dread and irresistible curiosity deep within her soul. Arriving at the edge of the lake at twilight, Kaori was struck by a surreal, almost preternatural sense of inevitability. The lake, shrouded by mist that refused to dissipate even as the sun lowered in the sky, gave off an aura of forlorn despair. In the distance, the decrepit inn lurked like a spectre from the past, a forlorn edifice whose peeling walls and warped windows seemed to speak of tragedies once endured. As she stepped closer, a feeling of melancholy and foreboding seeped into her bones, as though the very air was charged with sorrow and regrets unspoken for centuries. The ancient inn, known in local lore as the Inn of Dark Whispers, loomed before Kaori's with an unsettling mix of history and mystery. Its architectural decay spoke of a bygone era when the building had been vibrant with life, but now every creak and groan of its timbers echoed the lament of lost souls. A subtle, inexplicable energy pervaded the corridors, as if the building itself remembered each whispered secret, each mournful sigh carried by the wind. The air was heavy with memories and regrets, and as Kaori stepped through the creaking entrance, she could almost hear the faded laughter and soft weeping of those condemned to wander these halls. Inside the inn, every detail of its melancholic decay whispered stories of sorrow and abandonment. Kaori traced her fingertips along the time-worn banisters, feeling an inexplicable connection to the spirits that were said to have once inhabited these spaces. Faded portraits hung askew on the walls, their subjects bearing eyes that seemed to follow her every movement with silent despair. The dim light, filtered through grimy windows, lent an otherworldly quality to the corridor, transforming it into a spectral gallery where each shadow and flickering flame revealed fragments of untold grief and an overwhelming sense of isolation. As night began to assert its dominion, the inn revealed more of its hidden truths. Every step Kaori took was accompanied by the creaking of aged floorboards, the sound resonating like distant echoes of past tragedies. The haunting whispers seemed to float out from the walls, speaking in voices both tender and tormented. Standing in a vast, barren parlor, Kaori felt the palpable presence of those who had been ensnared by the inn's curse, their silent pleas reverberating in the hollows of the building. It was as if the very atmosphere mourned the lost souls, casting a somber veil over her every thought. Wandering through the labyrinthine corridors, Kaori was drawn into a slow, deliberate process of discovery. Each room she entered held remnants of forgotten lives, a lone rocking chair that creaked with the rhythm of distant memories, an abandoned journal with pages yellowed and frayed by time, and a mirror whose surface shimmered with reflections that did not belong solely to the present. The interplay between light and shadow seemed carefully orchestrated by some unfathomable force, and every whispered secret of the inn teased at her sanity, compelling her to peel back layers of sorrow and desolation with cautious, trembling steps. In one particular chamber, Kaori encountered a weathered writing desk partially concealed by a tattered curtain. Intrigued, she approached and discovered brittle letters stacked neatly, as though waiting for her attention. Each letter recounted tales of longing and loss, revealing the fates of those whose lives had intersected with the inn's dark past. The words, though faded with time, carried a depth of emotion that chilled her to the core. With each passing moment, the ink on the pages seemed to swell with the weight of forgotten grief, merging with the pervasive sorrow that filled the air, leaving Kaori to question the boundary between her own reality and the spectral narratives that were unfolding around her. As the hours slipped by, the interplay between the waning light and the impending darkness drove Kaori to explore further into the inn's secret recesses. In a forgotten wing along a narrow corridor, she discovered remnants of personal belongings. A faded scarf, a delicate porcelain vase, and shattered trinkets left behind in haste. The careful arrangement of these items evoked a poignant story of lives cut short, lives left incomplete in the throes of despair and uncertainty. Each relic seemed imbued with an otherworldly melancholy, and Kasori felt the chill of lamentation emanating from every corner, as if the past were reaching out to grasp her in its sorrowful embrace. While the night deepened, the spectral manifestations of the inn began their subtle descent into a more tangible form. Kaori sensed unseen presences drifting by, leaving behind faint echoes of their existence. A gentle brush against the fabric of her coat, a soft murmur that barely registered as a whisper of regret. The atmosphere thickened with each passing minute, as if the very walls were permeated with sorrow and endless yearning. Shadows morphed and elongated along the flooring, converging into indistinct shapes that hinted at lost lives and lingering despair, all merging together to form a tapestry of grief too profound to be easily comprehended. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and the need to understand the layers of trauma that resided in this haunted refuge, Kaori methodically explored each chamber of the inn. In one damp, musty room, she discovered an antique gramophone, its horn curving like an ancient relic from an era of dreams and despair. The device, resting silently in the dim light, seemed to be waiting for the moment to reclaim the voices of the past. As the silence pressed in, Kaori could almost sense the echoes of melancholic melodies swirling in the air, each note a testament to the souls whose hopes had been dulled by the inexorable pull of the inn's tragic history. With the deepening darkness came a shift in the air, a subtle, most imperceptible chill that sent shivers down Kaori's spine. Every step forward brought her closer to the heart of the inn. Yet the path was fraught with unseen dangers and the weight of sorrow. The atmosphere took on a life of its own, twisting the corridors and magnifying the quiet murmurs into a chorus of despair. It was as if the inn itself had become a living, breathing repository of memories and regrets, its walls echoing with the silent laments of those caught in its melancholy embrace. Each moment became a deliberate and painful exploration of grief, threading together the present with the ghosts of a long-lost past. In the solitude of a narrow hallway, Kaori found herself standing before a large, ornate mirror that seemed to trap every reflection within its frame. For a fleeting moment, she saw not only her own face, but the sorrowed visage of a woman from another time. A woman whose eyes were burdened with the weight of unfathomable loss. The vision, vivid yet ephemeral, evoked a deep empathy within Kaori, connecting her to a lineage of hearts irrevocably touched by the inn's sorrow. The mirror served as a portal to the past, inviting her to peer into the depths of anguish that had seeped into every fiber of the building, challenging her to confront the despair that lay dormant in her own heart. As Kaori moved further into the inn, the air grew thicker, with a sorrow so potent it was almost palpable. Each room was meticulously imbued with echoes of longing, a symphony of muted whispers and desperate sighs that resonated through the decaying walls. In one secluded chamber, she discovered a weathered diary, whose entries chronicled moments of profound despair and fleeting glimpses of hope. The words, penned in delicate loops and careful script, were laden with anguish and yearning. Reading them, Kaori felt a kinship with the long-forgotten writer whose pen bled confessions of a life once filled with passion, only to be swallowed by the relentless void of melancholy. Outside, the lake continued its mournful vigil, its dark waters reflecting the ghostly glow of a moon half hidden by wraith-like clouds. Kaori would often find herself drawn to the desolate shoreline, listening to the gentle lapping of the water and contemplating the enigma of the inn's legacy. The lake seemed to whisper secrets to her, drawing parallels between its silent depths and the labyrinth of emotions that had become her own inner world. The cold, reflective surface mirrored her unease as the murmurs of the past blended with the present, enveloping her in a cocoon of introspection and heartache that only the profound solitude of this forsaken place could evoke. One stormy evening, when the winds howled with the fury of nature's grief, Kaori sought shelter in the heart of the inn's grand dining hall. The vast room, once a place of convivial gatherings, now lay in a state of frozen lament. Its long-forgotten table draped in shadows and remnants of more hopeful times. Flickering candlelight cast wavering patterns on the worn wooden floor, and the soft rustle of fallen leaves outside mingled with the distant murmurs of anguish that seemed to rise from the very foundation of the building. In that moment, as the storm raged beyond the walls, Kaori could feel the heavy hand of loss on her soul, drawing her deeper into the web of mysteries that the inn so artfully concealed. The inn's secrets were gradually unveiled like the slow peeling of ancient wallpaper, each layer revealing yet another facet of despair and regret. In a secluded library, filled with crumbling volumes and forgotten lore, Kaori discovered texts that spoke of a time when joy and sorrow danced together in delicate equilibrium. Her hands traced the ornate letters embossed on the bindings, absorbing the bittersweet poetry of lives once lived and dreams forever shattered. The library's silence was broken only by the soft rustle of pages turning under the weight of hidden voices, each murmur a legacy of heartbreak and the inexorable pull of fate that had led so many down this darkened path. Venturing deeper into the mysterious confines of the inn, Kaori began to notice unsettling phenomena that defied logical explanation. In the quiet solitude of a forgotten gallery, paintings adorned the walls with expressions that morphed subtly when glanced at from the corner of her eye. The eyes of the subjects, laden with sorrow and regret, seemed to follow her with a mournful persistence, as if imploring her to remember the tales of woe embedded within each brushstroke. The paintings, seemingly imbued with a life of their own, resonated with unspoken sorrow, a silent testament to the souls who had once been captive to the inn's enduring curse. With each passing hour, the spectral presences within the inn grew bolder, their intangible forms edging ever closer to the fragile line between the tangible world and the realm of the unknown. In the gloom of a long-abandoned lounge, Kaori experienced inexplicable moments dreams that had been systematically archived within its crumbling corridors. In a particularly desolate room near the rear of the inn, Kaori found an array of personal artifacts that painted a vivid picture of lives once full of promise. There were delicate trinkets, love letters sealed with heartfelt promises, and scraps of fabric that might once have belonged to garments of happier times. Each item exuded an aura of lingering melancholy and unfulfilled destiny. The arrangement of these relics formed an implicit narrative of intertwined paths and abandoned aspirations, stirring in Kaori an overwhelming empathy for the souls who had been both the architects and victims of the inn's enduring sorrow. It was as if every object longed to share its secret tale of love, loss, and the cold, unyielding march of fate. In the deep silence of the night, the inn transformed into a realm where reality and nightmare converged with disquieting ease. Kabori began to witness fleeting apparitions figures that moved gracefully through the halls, leaving trails of spectral luminescence in their wake. These fleeting visions were transient yet laden with palpable grief, whispering silent farewells to lives that had long evaporated into memory. The ethereal figures appeared to dance in a sorrowful cadence, their presence both inviting and ominous. As Kakori observed them, she was overcome by a deep sense of connection and despair, realizing that her own journey through these melancholic corridors was entwined with the tumultuous souls that had wandered these halls long before her arrival. In moments of introspection, as Kaori sat by a crumbling stone fireplace in a deserted sitting room, she considered the possibility that the inn itself was alive with the weight of its accumulated memories. The flames danced uncertainly, casting a soft glow on ancient engravings on the walls that depicted scenes of profound loss and quiet sorrow. Each flicker illuminated fragments of an epic, fragmented narrative, one that spoke of promises betrayed, dreams undone, and lives irrevocably altered by forces that lay beyond the realm of mortal understanding. In that transient glow, Kaori felt as though she were witnessing the very heartbeat of the inn, a slow throb pulsing with grief and the inexorable passage of time. Determined to piece together the intricate puzzle of the inn's dark legacy, Kaori sought refuge in the solitude of a small attic room that offered a panoramic view of the fog-shrouded lake. From this secluded vantage point, she watched the eternal interplay between mist and moonlight as the lake's surface gently rippled with the memory of ancient sorrows. The view was mesmerizing and profoundly unsettling, stirring within her emotions both wonder and a deep-seated terror. Here, surrounded by relics of a bygone era, she contemplated the delicate balance between hope and despair, a balance that seemed precariously poised over the abyss of the inn's tragic past. As Kaori's stay at the inn extended into the depths of the night, an ineffable sense of time began to erode the boundaries between the present and memories long past. The inn's corridors, once merely shadowed hallways, had transformed into living canvases of sorrow, where each surface recounted tales of fleeting moments of joy swallowed by an all-encompassing grief. She found herself awash in a profound melancholy, as though the sorrow of the place had seeped into her very soul. The sensations were both torturous and beautifully melancholic, evoking an awareness of the impermanence of life and the realization that every step taken within these haunted walls was a step deeper into a realm where tragedy was the only certainty. The more time Kaori spent within the inn, the more it became clear that it served as a repository of human despair, a silent, unyielding witness to the tragedies that had unfolded within its confines. In the stillness of an abandoned music room, the faint strains of a forgotten lullaby seemed to materialize from the very air, carrying with it an unmistakable echo of loss and yearning. With each delicate note, the room transformed into an acoustic labyrinth where the sound waves carried the emotional weight of distant dreams shattered by time. Kaori, deeply moved by the spectral performance, recognized that the music was more than mere sound. It was a bridge spanning the chasm between souls, separated by an unimaginable void of sorrow. As Kaori delved further into the inn's innermost sanctum, she encountered evidence of a past that was both intricate and profoundly heartrending. In a dimly lit study, adorned with remnants of once treasured artifacts and scribbled notes, she discovered the fragmented diaries of a woman whose life had been irreversibly intertwined with the inn. The diary recounted small moments of beauty amidst overwhelming despair, tender glances exchanged across a crowded room, quiet assurances spoken in desperate whispers, and the lonely solace found in moonlit strolls by the lake. Each carefully penned line evoked an echo of the narrator's personal torment, compelling Kaori to grapple with the realization that the inn bore witness to innumerable lives, each marked by love and suffering in equal measure. In one of the inn's more secluded alcoves, Kaori sensed the unnerving presence of someone who had been lost long ago. The space, though shrouded in dim light, pulsed with an aura of introspection and sorrow. An old forgotten mirror in the corner reflected not just her solitary image, but a blurred figure standing silently behind her, its features obscured by the distortion of time. The quiet apparition did not incite fear so much as a profound melancholic empathy. It was as if the spectral companion had come to share in her isolation, binding their fates together in a silent communion of hearts that had weathered the relentless storm of despair. The atmospheric weight of the cursed inn grew ever more tangible as Kaori roamed its silent halls. In a forgotten conservatory, overrun with wild vines and enshrouded by the gloom of neglect, she discovered remnants of a once thriving garden. The crumbling stone benches, overtaken by nature's reclaiming grasp, and shattered ceramic pots bore silent testament to the passage of time. Amid the encroaching decay, Kari discerned the faint fragrance of wilted blossoms mingling with the damp earth, a poignant reminder of beauty lost and the inexorable cycle of renewal and decay. Standing amid this spectral garden, she felt herself drawn deeper into the bittersweet interplay between life, death, and memory, as if nature itself mourned the tragic fate of those entwined with the inn. A sense of disquiet persisted as Kaori made her way to a long-forgotten mezzanine overlooking the main hall. Here, the space was filled with an oppressive silence that seemed to harbor the collective grief of generations past. Faded tapestries and intricate moldings whispered subtle clues of the inn's opulent yet sorrowful history. In that moment, Kaori began to understand that the building was not a mere structure of wood and stone, but a living entity whose every crevice echoed with the melancholy of lives once lived with passion and loss. Each step up the creaking staircase to the mezzanine was a step into the heart of the inn's tragic and inexorable destiny. As the nights bled into one another, Kaori's inner turmoil and the persistent ambience of sorrow wove themselves into a tapestry of existential reflection. In the silent hours before dawn, she would wander the empty corridors, listening to the whisper of the old wind and the soft murmurs that seemed to arise from the very bricks beneath her feet. These unspoken voices narrated tales of dreams unfulfilled and the eternal yearning for redemption. Amid the pervasive gloom, the inn's atmosphere nurtured a delicate equilibrium, a reminder that within the depths of despair there existed an ineffable beauty that could only be grasped by those willing to embrace the full spectrum of human emotion, however painful it might be. One particularly heavy night, Corey found herself drawn to a narrow stairway that led to a hidden annex beneath the inn. The narrow, descending passage was lined with relics that bore silent witness to a multitude of lives caught in the unyielding grip of sorrow. The walls were adorned with faded inscriptions and quotations penned in trembling script, a mosaic of introspection and regret. As she navigated the meandering steps, her heartbeat synchronizing with the slow, measured rhythm of her descent, Kaori could almost feel the presence of tormented souls whose anguished whispers wove together into a symphony of forlorn beauty, enveloping her in a cocoon of ethereal melancholy. In the secretive confines of the annex, Kaori discovered a modest chapel dedicated to those who had once sought solace within these sorrowful walls. The space was sparsely adorned, yet it radiated an aura of silent reverence. A single time-worn altar stood before a fractured stained glass window that filtered the moonlight into a kaleidoscope of ghostly hues. Here, in the deep quiet, the inn's tragic narrative was most palpable. A direct communion with the unyielding spirit of grief that had become inseparable from its very foundation. As Kaori knelt before the altar in silent contemplation, she became acutely aware of the shared human longing for absolution and understanding that transcended time and space. The inspectral inhabitants seemed to grow increasingly present as Kaori delved into the heart of its secrets. In the gloom of an isolated drawing room, she found herself surrounded by a faint luminescence that appeared to emanate from nowhere, only to retreat as quickly as it had appeared. The interplay of fleeting light and darkness stirred deep emotions within her, evoking both despair and reluctant hope. It was as though the very fabric of the room was woven from the sorrow and quiet determination of those left behind. Amid the ephemeral glow, Kaori's own soul resonated with the unspoken promise that even in overwhelming desolation, the human spirit could find a way to defy the weight of its memories. In moments of stillness, Kaori's reflections on the inn's history grew increasingly intertwined with her own internal struggles. Each worn corridor and forgotten artifact became a mirror, reflecting fragments of her past and the unresolved grief that she had long carried in silence. The nights were spent in quiet contemplation, where she would trace the intricate patterns of decay upon the walls and listen to the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat, blending with the faint echoes of the old building's lament. In that delicate interplay between memory and reality, the inn revealed a profound truth, that every life, no matter how shadowed by despair, bore within it the seeds of resilience and the distant promise of redemption. With each tentative step forward, Kaori was haunted by the realization that the inn's legacy of sorrow was an inescapable part of its identity. In a long-abandoned guest room, she discovered an old phonograph that played a haunting melody. When a delicate crank was turned, the notes, seemingly imbued with the essence of 1,000 whispered goodbyes. The lilting cadence of the music tugged at her heart, evoking feelings of both melancholy and wonder. As she listened, the strains of the melody bore testament to the courage of those who had once loved deeply, even in the face of impending despair. The resonance of the tune, delicate and haunting, served as a bridge between the beauty of moments past and the enduring melancholy of the inn's whispered memories. Driven by an ever-deepening empathy for the souls bound to the inn, Kaori began to trace the lineage of each forgotten tragedy with increasing care. Through meticulous observation of faded letters, tattered diaries, and the vestiges of personal mementos, she pieced together the mosaic of intertwined fates that had converged at this solemn haven. Each narrative unfolded like a slow, deliberate elegy, a meditation on human frailty and the inevitability of sorrow. The intricate details of lives lived in quiet desperation resonated deeply within her, prompting an introspection that bridged the gap between her own melancholy and the unspoken grief that suffused every corner of the dilapidated structure. Time flowed in a peculiar cadence within the inn, each moment steeped in an almost ritualistic melancholy that defied the rigid constraints of conventional reality. Kaori grew more attuned to the cadence of the inn's lament. Notice that even the whispered conversations among the shadows carried a poetry of suffering. In the dim light of a secluded corridor, she paused to trace her fingers along the cold, rough surface of a stone pillar, a silent sentinel that had borne witness to centuries of quiet agony and fleeting hope alike. Every detail was an invitation to remember that within the folds of despair, there existed the resilience of a spirit tested and tempered by the relentless passage of time. One evening, as the moon hung low over the enigmatic lake, and the mist curled like spectral tendrils around the decaying facade of the inn, Kaori experienced a profound transformation. Standing at the intersection of tangible sorrow and ethereal mystery, she realized that the inn's dark history was interwoven with the fabric of her own existence. The spectral voices that had haunted her footsteps seemed to acknowledge this connection, their silent chorus urging her to embrace the depths of her own vulnerability. In that transformative moment, she understood that the journey was not only about uncovering hidden histories, but also about accepting the raw, unyielding truth of personal loss and the cathartic power of grief. As the hours bled into the shrouded hours before dawn, Kaori felt the inn's overwhelming sorrow crystallize into an almost tangible presence. In a quiet alcove, illuminated solely by the gentle radiance of a single candle, she opened her heart to the secrets of the past, allowing the whispered laments of lost souls to seep into the recesses of her mind. The moment was both terrifying and redemptive, as the spectral memories merged with her own experiences in a dance of irrevocable longing and acceptance. In that fragile communion between living and dead, Kaori realized that healing was inextricably bound to the acknowledgement of pain, and that the inn, for all its haunting despair, offered a somber sanctuary for those unafraid to face the depths of human vulnerability. With the first hints of dawn inched through the fractured windows, Kaori found herself standing once more at the edge of the enigmatic lake. The water, still cloaked in the lingering remnants of darkness and mist, offered a mirror to her journey, a reflective testament to the struggles, sorrow, and delicate beauty of her nights spent in the inn's embrace. The lake's undulating surface was a tapestry of whispers from the past and soft ripples of the present, each shimmer a reminder of the interconnectedness of all souls who had passed through this forlorn place. In that quiet, introspective moment, Kaori felt both the weight and the grace of the inn's legacy. A timeless call to remember that every life, however shadowed by pain, is also a repository of hope, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. As Kaori prepared to leave the time-worn confines of the inn, her heart brimmed with a complex mixture of sorrow, wisdom, and newfound resolve. The journey through the lake of shadows and the inn of dark whispers had transformed her indelible spirit, binding her to a lineage of souls whose legacies transcended the decay of time. The haunting memories etched into her mind were not merely spectres of despair, but also poignant reminders of the indomitable beauty inherent in vulnerability and acceptance. With a final lingering glance at the ghostly silhouette of the inn dissolving into the mists of the lake, Kaori stepped forward into the uncertain light of a new day, carrying with her the weight of countless untold stories and the quiet promise that healing, however arduous, was possible beyond the veil of sorrow.